Found out a murder I never saw coming. Can you guess who did it? My name is Ryan, and I live in a quiet little town that seemed too peaceful for anything sinister to ever happen. I grew up here, went to school here, and had the same group of friends for most of my life. Everything felt familiar, comforting, and, for the most part, uneventful. But that all changed the day I found out that my best friend, Mike, had been found dead. Mike and I were inseparable. We'd been through everything together: school, sports, parties, and even the tough times. He was the kind of guy who'd always make you laugh, always have your back. He'd been acting a little strange the last couple of weeks before his death, though. We hadn't talked about it much, but he seemed distant, like there was something weighing on him. I noticed it, but I figured he was just going through one of those phases. You know, the kind of thing that every guy goes through at least once. But when Mike didn't show up for our usual weekend hangout, I knew something was wrong. He was the kind of guy who was always on time and never bailed on plans. I tried calling him, texting him, but nothing. Then I got the news his body was found in an alley near the park, stabbed multiple times. The shock hit me like a wave, drowning out everything else around me. How could something like that happen to someone like Mike? The police were quick to arrive, and the whole town seemed to be in a state of disbelief. It wasn't like this place. Nothing bad ever happened here, and now a murder of my best friend was right in our backyard. I couldn't understand it, couldn't wrap my mind around it. They said they didn't know much about the circumstances yet, but that Mike had been meeting someone that night. The details were sketchy, and the police weren't giving much away. I didn't want to believe that Mike was involved in anything shady. I needed answers, and I was determined to find out what happened to him. What I didn't know at that time was that the answers I was about to uncover would change my life forever. As the days went by, I couldn't shake the image of Mike lying there, lifeless. His family was devastated, as expected. His mom, his dad, and none of them could make sense of it. The more I thought about it, the more questions piled up. Who would want to kill Mike? He wasn't involved in any bad stuff, at least not that I knew of. Sure, he did his moments of reckless behaviour in high school, but nothing that would have put him in harm's way like this. I kept thinking about the night of his death. He texted me earlier in the evening, saying he needed to talk. We planned to meet up at our usual spot later, but he never showed. That text never sat right with me. Why didn't he just tell me whatever it was? What was so important that he had to meet with someone else instead? I tried talking to the police, but they were tight-lipped. They didn't want to give me any details. All they would say was that they were investigating Mike's last known movements and had a few leads. But I wasn't convinced. Something didn't add up. So I started investigating on my own. I went to the park where Mike's body was found, hoping to pick up any clue I could. The alley was dark, and the police had already sealed it off as a crime scene. But I found something strange. A piece of paper. Torn and crumpled, barely visible in the dirt. I picked it up, my heart racing. It looked like a note, but most of it was unreadable. However, there was one part that caught my eye: meet me at midnight, or else. The note was chilling. Who was Mike meeting? And what was the or else about? I kept thinking about it all night, but I couldn't put it down. I had to know more. I had to find out who was behind this. The next morning, I decided to visit the local bar Mike used to hang out at. Maybe someone there had seen something, maybe someone knew something. When I walked in, I noticed a guy at the counter who looked a little too familiar. It was Matt, one of Mike's friends from a few years ago. They drifted apart, but Mike had mentioned his name recently. I wasn't sure if I could trust him, but he seemed like the kind of guy who might know something. I walked up to him, pretending to be casual. "Hey, Matt, you heard about Mike?" I asked. He didn't look at me at first, his gaze fixed on his drink. Then he slowly turned to face me, his eyes cold and distant. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I heard." I could tell there was more to it, but Matt wasn't going to open up easily. Something about his tone felt off. I wasn't sure if he was hiding something, but there was no doubt in my mind anyone Mike had been involved with something darker than I ever imagined. And Matt, I was starting to think, might just be the key to unlocking the truth. I knew I had to get Matt to talk. I could feel the tension in the air thick and suffocating. It wasn't like him to be so quiet, so distant. Mike and Matt had been close once, almost like brothers. If anyone knew something, it would be him. But getting it out of him wouldn't be easy. I wasn't sure where to start, so I decided to approach it from a different angle. "Come on, Matt," I said, trying to keep my voice casual but with a hint of urgency. "Mike was your friend. You know something about what happened, don't you? The police aren't telling me anything. I need your help." He took a slow sip of his drink, staring into the glass, avoiding my gaze. For a moment, I thought he might ignore me, but then he let out a heavy sigh and leaned back in his chair. "I don't know anything," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. I swear, I wasn't involved. I wasn't convinced. I pushed further. "But you were close with him, right? I mean, you must have known about his plans, where he was going. You're telling me you didn't hear anything? The guy was killed. Matt, how can you not care?" His expression shifted slightly, guilt or maybe fear. It was hard to tell, but I wasn't about to let him off the hook so easily. I am not saying I don't care, he stammered, running his hand through his messy hair. It's complicated, okay? I leaned in closer, desperate. What's complicated, Matt? Just tell me what happened. I need to know the truth. For a long moment, he didn't respond. Then, his eyes flicked up to meet mine, and I saw the flicker of something that told me he knew more than he was letting on. But instead of speaking, he just shook his head, his face twisted in frustration. I can't, he said finally, his voice cracking. If I tell you, it'll all spiral out of control. You won't believe it. You'll be in danger too. My heart skipped a beat. What was he talking about? Danger? I didn't know if he was trying to protect me or if he was trying to cover up something even worse. But whatever it was, I couldn't walk away now. I don't care about the danger, I said firmly. I just want to know what happened to Mike. Matt looked around, as if making sure no one else was listening, then he leaned in closer to me. Mike got mixed up with some bad people, he whispered. Real bad people, people who deal with things in a way that you and I can't even begin to understand. I don't know everything, but Mike got in too deep. He was trying to back out, but it was already too late. I could feel my stomach tighten with dread. I had no idea what kind of world Mike had gotten involved in, but whatever it wasn't good. The picture Matt was painting was getting darker and darker, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear more. Who are these people, Matt? I asked, my voice trembling slightly. But before he could answer, the door to the bar swung open, and a tall man walked in. He looked around briefly, his gaze settling on me. Matt's face went pale, and he immediately stood up, grabbing my arm. Let's go, now, Matt hissed, urgency in his voice. I didn't know who the man was, but Matt's reaction said enough. Whatever Matt had been hiding, whoever he was afraid of, it was real. And it was about to get a whole lot worse. Matt dragged me out of the bar faster than I could process what was happening. I was caught off guard, stumbling a little as he pulled me through the door and into the street. The man who had walked in didn't follow us, but his presence was unsettling enough. It was like Matt had seen a ghost, and that ghost was far from friendly. Why did we leave so fast? I asked, trying to keep up with Matt's frantic pace. Just trust me, he said, his voice low and urgent. You don't want to get mixed up in this, Ryan. Trust me, it's not safe. I could feel the fear in his voice, and it only made me more anxious. I wasn't about to back off now. Whatever was going on, it had everything to do with Mike's death, and I needed to know the truth. Matt, stop. What's going on? Who are these people you're talking about? I demanded, pulling on his arm to make him face me. He stopped abruptly, his shoulders tense, as he looked over his shoulder, as if expecting someone to be following us. His eyes darted around nervously before he let out a long, frustrated sigh. Look, Matt started, lowering his voice even further. Mike got involved with a dangerous group. They ran some illegal stuff in town, drugs, money laundering. Even worse, he got caught up in it. But the thing is, Mike wasn't like them. He wasn't supposed to be part of it. I swallowed hard. What do you mean, wasn't supposed to be part of it? How does that even happen? Matt hesitated, then shook his head as if he couldn't believe what he was about to say. He owed someone money, big money, and when Mike tried to back out, he got too deep into their operations. They don't just let people go. My chest tightened as the pieces started to fit together. Mike wasn't just some random victim. He was targeted because he tried to get out of something dangerous. But who was the person pulling the strings? And why hadn't Matt told me about it earlier? You're telling me this now? I snapped, frustrated. Why didn't you say anything before? I didn't know who else to trust, he admitted, looking me in the eyes for the first time. I thought if I told you, they'd come after you too. You have no idea how far these people will go to keep things quiet. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It sounded like something out of a crime novel, not something that could happen to a guy like Mike. But the fear in Matt's eyes told me he wasn't lying. Who is it, Matt? I asked again, my voice shaking now. Who is behind all this? I don't know their names, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. But there's a guy in Middleman who's been calling the shots. I think Mike was trying to set up a deal with him to get out, but it backfired. I didn't need to hear any more. We have to go to the police, I said, my voice determined. Matt shook his head violently. No, the police won't help. These people have a hand in everything. The cops, the courts, they're all in on it. You go to the police, and you'll be next. I can't let that happen to you. I was stunned. The idea that the very people who were supposed to protect us could be involved in this was too much to handle. But it made sense. The whole town felt off lately, like something was simmering beneath the surface, just waiting to explode. We need to get out of here, Matt urged, his panic rising. They're going to come for both of us. You need to lay low, Ryan. I felt the gravity of the situation sink in. My best friend had been murdered for trying to get out of a criminal world that none of us knew existed, and now I was in the middle of it. I had no choice but to keep going, to find out who was responsible for all of this. But even as I made that decision, I felt the weight of danger pressing in on me. I didn't know who to trust anymore, and I sure as hell didn't know how I was going to survive the next steps. But I wasn't about to stop now. Mike deserved justice, and I was going to get it no matter the cost. We spent the next few days trying to lay low, but it was impossible to shake the feeling that we were being watched. Matt and I holed up in his place, barely leaving the apartment except for the occasional trip to the store to grab food. Every time we stepped outside, I couldn't help but glance over my shoulder, half expecting someone to be lurking in the shadows. But Matt was right. The police were no help. I went to the station, trying to talk to one of the detectives handling Mike's case, but I quickly realized they weren't interested in getting to the bottom of it. They seemed content to write it off as some random act of violence. As far as they were concerned, Mike had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. I wasn't buying that, and I wasn't about to give up. There was one person I could trust, Lisa. She was Mike's girlfriend, and she'd been devastated by his death. I hadn't heard from her since the night of the murder, but I knew she might have information that could lead me closer to the truth. Maybe she knew more about Mike's life before everything spiraled out of control. I called her phone, praying she'd pick up. After a few rings, her voice answered. "Ryan," she sounded surprised and maybe a little scared. "Is everything okay?" I hesitated for a moment. "I don't know, Lisa. I need to talk to you. It's about Mike." There was a long silence on the other end before she finally spoke. "I don't know if I can handle this anymore, Ryan," she said, her voice trembling. "Everything's so messed up, I don't even know who I can trust." "I understand," I said gently. "But I need your help. Mike was involved in something big, Lisa, something dangerous, and I need to know if you know anything about it." She was quiet again, and I could hear the sound of her breathing heavily on the other end. Finally, she spoke. "I don't know what he was mixed up in," she said softly. "But the last time I saw him, he was scared. He told me there were people after him, people who wouldn't stop until he paid them back. I thought it was just paranoia, but no. Now I think he was right." Her words sent a chill down my spine. Mike had known he was in danger, and he hadn't been able to get out. That's why he'd been trying to meet me that night. He'd wanted to tell me everything, but it was too late. "I need to know more, Lisa," I urged. "Do you remember anything? Anything at all that might help? The name, a place, anything." She was silent for a long time, and just when I thought she might hang up, she whispered, "There was a guy. I don't know his name, but he always met Mike late at night. He said he was a businessman, always in a suit, never gave his real name, but Mike was scared of him. Ryan, he was scared." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. This wasn't just some small-time thug. Whoever Mike had been dealing with, they had power. They had control. And they weren't going to stop until they got what they wanted. "Lisa," I said, my voice steady now, "where did Mike meet him? Do you know?" She hesitated, then whispered, "There's a warehouse on the edge of town. It's abandoned. That's where they met. It's where Mike got involved with him." A warehouse. It was the only lead I had left. I thanked Lisa and hung up the phone, adrenaline flooding my veins. This was it, the moment that would decide everything. I was going to that warehouse. I had to. Matt wasn't going to like it. He'd been trying to keep me out of this to protect me from the danger, but I knew I couldn't sit back any longer. I couldn't let Mike's death be for nothing. I had to see this through. That night, I grabbed my jacket, not even thinking twice. The warehouse was my only shot at uncovering the truth. And if I was lucky, it might be my only shot at getting out of this alive. The drive to the warehouse felt like a lifetime. Every turn I took, every bump in the road, made my heart race faster. I couldn't shake the image of Mike dead in the alley, betrayed by people he thought he could trust. As I got closer, I felt a cold sense of dread creeping up my spine. I wasn't sure what I was walking into, but I couldn't turn back now. The warehouse was located on the outskirts of town, in a part of the industrial area that was rarely visited anymore. The buildings were all old, decaying structures, and the air smelled of rust and decay. I parked my car a few hundred yards away, as close as I dared to get without drawing attention to myself. The place was dark, but the faint glow of a few overhead lights illuminated the front door. I could see the outline of a figure moving inside. I took a deep breath and slowly got out of the car, trying to stay as quiet as possible. My mind was racing. Was this a trap? Who could I trust? Was Matt lying to me, or was he genuinely trying to protect me from something too dangerous to confront? I crept toward the entrance, my footsteps barely making a sound on the gravel. The door was slightly ajar, just enough for me to slip inside. I pushed it open quietly and stepped into the shadows. Inside, the warehouse was even more eerie than I expected. The large space was filled with crates, barrels, and strange equipment I couldn't identify in the dim light. The air smelled stale, like it hadn't been ventilated in years. There were no signs of life, no noise, no movement. But then I heard it. A voice, low and gravelly, echoed in the distance. "You made the right choice coming here, Ryan." I froze. The voice wasn't familiar, but the calmness in it sent a chill through my body. Someone knew I was here. Someone had been waiting for me. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice steady despite the pounding of my heart. From the shadows, a man stepped forward. He was tall, wearing a dark suit and tie just like Lisa had described. His face was partially obscured by the low light, but his eyes gleamed with an unsettling intensity. He didn't look like a businessman. He looked like a predator. "I'm the one who's been controlling the situation, Ryan," he said, his lips curling into a smile. "And you're in over your head." My heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? Why did you kill Mike? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he took a slow step toward me, his gaze never leaving mine. Mike wasn't supposed to be involved in all of this. He was an unfortunate casualty, but you, he said, his voice dropping lower, you're different. You've been poking around, asking too many questions. That makes you a problem. I backed up a step, trying to keep some distance between us. The man's presence was overwhelming, suffocating. I needed to think fast. This was it, the moment where everything could go horribly wrong. Why me? I demanded, trying to keep my voice firm. I'm just trying to find out who killed my friend. He chuckled, a cold, humorless sound that sent shivers down my spine. It's not that simple, Ryan. Mike was involved in a lot of things you can't even begin to understand, and now you're in too deep. You think you can just walk away from all this? It doesn't work like that. My blood ran cold. I knew it wasn't just about Mike's murder. It was about something much bigger, something dangerous, something that could destroy everything. I won't let you get away with this, I said, my voice shaking with rage. I'll bring you down, all of you. I won't stop. The man's smile faded, and his eyes narrowed. You think you can stop this? Do you have any idea what's at stake here? I don't just kill people for fun, Ryan. I do it because I have to, because people like you make things complicated. Before I could react, a loud noise erupted from behind me. I spun around, heart racing, only to find another figure stepping out of the shadows. It was Matt. His face was pale, his hand shaking. Ryan, no, don't. But it was too late. The man in the suit took one swift step forward, his hand moving with terrifying speed. A sharp, searing pain erupted in my side, and everything went black. I woke up to an unbearable sting in my side. For a moment, I didn't understand what had happened. My head was foggy, everything felt blurry, and my body was so heavy I could hardly move. But then the pain hit me again, sharper this time, and I remembered. The warehouse. The man in the suit. Matt. I tried to open my eyes, but the world around me spun in dizzying circles. I was lying on something cold, hard concrete, I realized. A floor. Where was I? Was I dead? I could hear faint voices muffled in the distance, but they weren't clear enough to make out. Then, slowly, a face appeared in my blurred vision. It was Matt. His face was pale, sweat dripping down his forehead. He looked terrified. Ryan, you're awake, he said, relief flooding his voice. God, I didn't think you'd make it. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry, and my mouth felt like sandpaper. I forced out a hoarse whisper. What happened? Matt's eyes flickered with guilt. I'm sorry, I didn't know what to do. I didn't want you to get hurt, but you're right. They killed Mike. They were after him because of the things he got mixed up in, and they... He stopped, taking a deep breath, and I could see him struggling with his words. They wanted to use you to send a message. That's why I had to stay away, Ryan. That's why I tried to keep you out of this. I felt a surge of anger rise in my chest, the words pushing themselves past the pain. Why didn't you tell me sooner, Matt? Why did you keep this from me? I could have... I didn't want you to die too, Matt interrupted, his voice breaking. I didn't want to see you end up like Mike. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. Mike's death had been senseless, and now I was stuck in the middle of a criminal world that I had no business being part of. But I couldn't just sit back. Not after everything. Did they kill me? I asked, my voice trembling. Matt shook his head quickly. No, they tried, but it was a warning shot. You're still alive, barely, but you have to understand, Ryan. They'll come after you again. They'll never stop. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My best friend had been killed because he tried to escape this nightmare. And now I was tangled up in it too. I pushed myself up from the ground, ignoring the pain in my side. I'm not running, Matt. I'm going after them. I'm going to make sure they pay for what they did to Mike and to me. Matt grabbed my arm, his grip tight. You don't get it, do you? These people. They don't just kill. They own everything. The cops, the courts, the town, it's all theirs. And if you go after them, you'll never make it out alive. You don't know what you're dealing with, Ryan. They're too powerful. For the first time in the chaos of the last few days, I felt a flicker of doubt. Was I in over my head? Could I really take down the people responsible for Mike's death? But I couldn't stop now. I couldn't let it end like this. I don't care about power, I said, my voice steady. I care about justice. Mike deserves it. I won't stop until they're gone. Matt looked at me for a long time, his eyes searching mine as if trying to read something I couldn't understand. Finally, he sighed and let go of my arm. I can't stop you, can I? I shook my head. No, you can't. Matt looked defeated, like the fight had gone out of him, but then he stood up, a slow, reluctant nod. All right, he said, his voice rough. If you're going to do this, you'll need more than just guts. I'll help you. I looked at him in surprise. You're with me? I'm not going to sit back and let them win, Matt said, his tone hardening. But you're right, Ryan, this isn't over, not by a long shot. You might be in the fight of your life. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what lay ahead. This wasn't just a quest for revenge anymore. It was a war, and I was going to make sure I won. Then let's finish this, I said, my voice unwavering. And with that, Matt and I set out into the night. I didn't know how this would end, but I knew one thing for sure. The people who had taken Mike's life would never rest again. I would bring them down, no matter the cost.